I'm Sean Thompson. I one of the co-owners here at Guardian Personal Protection Dogs. I've also owned a pet dog business for 20 plus years and been doing high-level competition sport training for 30 years. I've been able to qualify for the world team 4 times, which is like the top 6 competitor people that year. And we usually go compete in Europe, like the Olympics, against 30 other countries. And most of my experience with the pet dog business, it's really allowed me the unique skill of learning how to work with customers and really how to get them to understand what the pros know, and not speak just jargon that's over their head, but really get them to know the clear information they need so that they can be successful. And Ron?
Sure. So I'm Ron Parker. I'm one of the co-founders here at Guardian Protection Dogs as well, and I've been training dogs from hunting dogs to protection dogs for about 25 years now. And I met Sean about 13 years ago at this point when I came out west from the Philadelphia area. I was looking for someone to help me to continue to keep my dogs sharp, and I talked to a lot of people, and unfortunately, a lot of people out here weren't qualified. And back then, not many folks had Malinois as pets. So I saw a guy and I did a quick Huey in my truck. He must have thought I was nuts. I was like, "Where do you train?" He told me, and the rest is history. So I've been, working and learning from Sean for the past at least dozen years, and we've been talking about, doing something very special like Guardian Protection Dogs for quite some time, and I'm very proud to say that we're off and well on our way with it.
And I think timing was a key thing for both of us in starting this company, and we've been doing it now for quite a while. But I had a unique skill set that I brought to the company. But tell us a little bit about your background and how
Sure.
what skills did you bring specific to
Yeah.
the company?
So outside of the dog training, I have run very large companies, global companies, for most of my life, like 30 years. And I think that gives you unique experience on what it means to serve clients. And we've kind of adopted a lot of those practices into our business. We're not looking for transactional events. We're looking to build strategic partnerships with our clients. We're not looking just to sell a dog. We're looking to bring someone into our family. And that's really important for us. We're not into this to become millionaires. We're certainly not going to ever achieve that with this business, especially with the volume that we have. We really try to focus on quality over quantity. But my experience serving clients globally, matched with Sean's experience with that level of expertise in dog training, really separates us from anyone else that's doing this. A lot of folks have started out in this business just dog training, and some can train dogs, but not to the level that Sean's reached. And they certainly don't know how to treat customers or run a business from the same level of experience that I have.
And I think the synergy between the two of us of knowing how we want to serve our clients and produce and deliver a highly skilled and a quality product is aligned, and that becomes a core tenet of our business. And so one of the things that's unique about Guardian Protection Dogs is our clients always come first, where we're trying to deliver a product that supersedes expectation, but the service is even beyond that.
Yeah, and it has to be, right? I mean, we're in the service industry, and I think it's really important too to know how to read your clients. They may think they want something, and in reality, they need something else. And you have to be able to have conversations to pull that out from them, but really then be able to help them understand why they don't really need that very huge cane corso, because that's more of a guardian junkyard dog versus a personal protection dog. So I think that's really important, as well as how to read your clients and help them come to the conclusion that's going to be best for them. I think it's probably important too to mention what a personal protection dog is, and then we can get into that. But a personal protection dog is not a dog that you're going to have to put away when your friends or family comes around, or when your kids' friends come around. It's not a dog that's going to be tied to a tree that's very aggressive. We don't sell aggressive dogs. It's no different than someone who's very skilled in boxing or MMA. They have a very unique skill set that they can leverage when they need to defend themselves, right? Yeah. Same thing with our dogs. And we have a very wide variety from a demographics perspective, what our client base. We have a young gal, probably the youngest person we place a dog with. It's been a victim of domestic violence, to someone who's extremely wealthy with exotic cars, to an elder couple who actually had another very wealthy family who had their home broken into and alarms cut and all those things. And then you have your average family. So we go from, one demographic to the other, and it's really about making sure we are taking the time to understand their needs. And that's part of our process. At some point, we talk to so many people, but at some point when they get serious, we have to really sit down and understand what they're trying to accomplish and pull that out of them in a manner where they feel comfortable sharing it. And then that allows us to put them with a dog that's going to be very compatible.
Absolutely. You talked about what is a good protection dog, or what is a protection dog that comes from us. Just a quick note, there's a lot of people that sell dogs or have their own dogs and never train them and say they're a personal protection dog or a protection dog. Well, that's a broad category. What we do is something very specific. A lot of dogs that just get aggressive, one, they don't really want to stick in the fight because they're fearful, and that's where most aggression comes from untrained dogs. But what we deliver is a dog that is very, what we call, stable in the head, that has a unique temperament. So we're looking for something very specific because we know that our clients will need these skills in the dog in order for them to be successful. I would say those skills would be dogs, pretty bulletproof, rock solid in different environments. So they're very sure of themselves, but also easy enough to handle, where they're very loving and engaging, but also have the drive and the desire to be able to do the bite work at the highest level. And what that produces is a very successful personal protection dog. And if we were to define what that personal protection dog is, it's a dog who can function just like a service dog, meaning they can go out in public, be around any kind of environmental stimuli, and be very stable and well under control and easily. And then also have a full menu of protection skills, similar to what people would think of a police dog, where they can alert on command, they can shut it down on command, they can engage under big pressure, and still have access to their brain so you can give them direction. A lot of dogs that just get aggressive, they're highly aroused, but then they're also what I call in Pluto, and you can't access them, so now they're just a loose cannon. For our, what we call as a personal protection dog, is never a loose cannon. They only pull the trigger, they only engage when we pull the trigger.
Yeah, and I think there's a misperception too. I mean, we've talked to so many people, and hey, I have this 120-pound Rottweiler. I know that he would protect me, and I would almost guarantee you that if one of us were to put on a bite suit and come into their home, we'd run the dog. If the other door was open, we'd run the dog out of the house. And there's many reasons for that. One, it doesn't have the training. Our dogs start from a very young age, and we'll get into that more. From 8 weeks to 2 years old, we're providing this very unique training and skill sets and experience in environmentals, as well as socializing them. But then genetics play a key role too. And without the genetics and the proper training, I can almost guarantee you that dog will not protect you. It will run when push comes to shove. Now, I'm not saying that it won't be a good deterrent, but if things get serious where you need help, I could almost guarantee you that dog's not going to be there to support you and your family in those type of situations.
Absolutely, because that higher level, like you mentioned, a lot of dogs can be a deterrent. But some dogs can be better deterrents because of training and obedience. But at that highest level, it's a skill set. They have to feel confident engaging something that's bigger than them, and know how to do that job very well. And that only happens with quality training and extensive training. So let's talk about a little bit about what are the circumstances, what are clients that need a protection dog, or what services, what people could benefit from them?
Yeah, I would just say that if it's someone in my family, I would like everyone to have one, because you're not going to have a dog that's better trained than that, period. End of story. And my daughter, unfortunately, I rescued a couple cattle dogs, and now she has them, so she doesn't have a personal protection dog. But I made it real clear, when they pass on, you're getting one, because I would just sleep a lot better at night. So I think everyone should have one, and I think it is, depending on the situation, You know, you have folks who are just, you know, like an executive who is traveling a lot. That was my situation. I was traveling all over the country and outside the country, be gone for weeks at a time. I didn't feel comfortable leaving my wife and kids at home without me being there. And I've always lived in, as an adult, in nice neighborhoods. Well, bad things don't happen as much in bad neighborhoods. There's nothing to rob there. They're looking for opportunities where a door was left unlocked or something like that, and then a simple robbery turns into something awful. So that's how I personally got into it. But then you'll have situations where someone has a stalker, right? Or there's a domestic violence situation, or they had you know, a robbery or a home invasion. There's just, or a potential carjacking. There's so many different scenarios. So we have clients that range from being senior to early 20s to, you know, family folks.
Yeah, I think you're right. The only people that really don't need a protection dog are people that don't like dogs, and they're not part of who we're talking to.
Yeah.
But when our clients always attest to, after they've had a personal protection dog, they go, man, this is the best of both worlds. It's a dog who I could connect with more because I could take him anywhere,
Yeah.
just like a service dog. But they also really felt this dog will engage and moreover will deter any bad situations from coming. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, having a protection dog, a great pet, and a great pet that can engage your family and your lifestyle, where they can fully integrate into your world, and you don't have to put them up when this happens, or can't have them around your grandmother, or can't have them around this situation, your kids. These dogs, you know, are much, much more versatile, because the more versatile they are, the more versatile they can protect you and work in any situation.
Yeah, and we really encourage you to take your dog everywhere with you. And our dogs are trained that you can do that. My personal dog comes everywhere with me, dinners, vacation. They can literally go anywhere with you. And when you purchase one of these dogs, you're making an investment in a security asset for you. You basically have a security team around you and your family. And this dog's going to, you know, live to be 12, 14 years old. And that investment, and I just emphasize, it's an investment in your family's safety and security. If you never had to use it, then I could almost guarantee you the dog has deterred a situation. If something does happen and someone's jiggling the door while you're away, like I'm in India or I'm in China, and I'm not there to do something, and my dog is going to alert on that, and I have the confidence to know that if that person has bad intentions to come through the door, it's going to do his job, I can now go do what I need to do to make a living and put food on the table. We talked about what a personal protection dog is, but I think it's also important to mention how they fit into the grander scheme of things. And we really promote and believe in depth and defense. So you really need to have good lights, good spotlights, motion lights. You need to have good alarm. You need to have good locks. But all those things can fail you. The lights may not work. The alarms can be cut. And an alarm is a detection, but not protection. And in spite of being very diligent, you may find that after you went around and checked all the windows and the locks, your son went outside for something and left one of the doors unlocked. And now you find yourself in a situation.
That's why they call them accidents.
Right?
It never goes the way you planned.
Yeah. And it takes, in the best of situations, and I mean this, I mean no harm by this. I'm not trying to critique police. I'm a huge supporter of law enforcement. But it can take up to 10 minutes for them to get to your home, and you are left dealing with that threat for 10 minutes before someone can get there to help you. Now, you may be a firearm person. I'm a huge firearm person. I believe in the Second Amendment. I have a pretty good understanding of when I can use it and not use it because I've studied this forever, but I don't have the same confidence in my wife that she would know when it's okay. And that's the other thing here is when you pull that gun out, whether it's okay or not, you are making a decision. And if you pull it out, you better use it to end someone's life. And that's going to be hard to live with, right? And thankfully, not many people run in those type of situations. But if you do, and you don't have one of our dogs, you're going to have to make a tough decision, right?
And one less layer of defense. And
Yeah.
that dog can provide you that buffer between that and lethal force, whereas a dog can be a deterrent, but they can also engage, but engage a way that's not lethal force and less liability. Because when you're on your property and someone comes in, the liability really goes down.
Yeah.
And having a dog that's really well trained when you're out and about and they're on leash, they're not going to engage unless it was something that was a credible threat and that was pretty obvious.
Yeah, and with my, like, I've been doing this for 20 something years. My travel schedule was such that I would be gone for like 3 weeks at a time. And my dog at the time was trained to sleep this is years ago, at the top of the steps. And again, my wife's been trained with a firearm, but while she's thinking about getting it out and thinking about if this is okay, the dog's going to react and do what it needs to do. And I always advised her, if God forbid something happens, you get the kids, you get out of the house, the dog will do his job. Don't worry about him.
And you're never necessarily at the place where your firearm is, or you're not in a situation where you can get from point A to point B. And having that dog that's a mobile barrier in your defense is really a valuable tool to have in your arsenal.
Yeah, and so many people I talk to about, just depth in defense and how you go about it, and you're asking them about their firearm. Well, yeah, I got kids, so I keep the bullets locked up over there and the gun's here. Well, that's not going to work. Yeah. And that's where one of these dogs not only protect you in your home, but when you're out shopping. Like, let's just assume you're out grocery shopping, and one of our clients actually had this happen a couple times. She had to be escorted to her car because she was being stalked by some guy in the grocery store. Now, with one of our dogs, there's commands to turn the dog on to react to a situation. Now, if she is walking out and she feels that she's being stalked by this person and pulls a firearm and gets it wrong, she's going to jail. Whereas if she has one of our dogs and turns the dog on, the dog is going to deter the person. And if she got it wrong, the guy might be pissed, but she's going home. Yeah. And so is he. And that's a huge difference in having a firearm and a real personal protection dog that you can literally take anywhere with you.
So if you break that down, we're talking about buying you time as a critical thing, a layer of defense that's not a lethal force, and also lowering your liability so that you don't have consequences of dealing with an issue that was bad already that turned worse because of now liability you may have. What do you think? We talk a little bit about what our dogs, that journey of our dog, what makes a protection dog? Like, how does it start? Do we get a dog who's already trained and then we just sell it? Do we get a baby? Do we puppy dog and we develop it? What does that look like?
Yeah, we get a lot of questions around that. And we have a 2-year program on average that our dogs go through. And we start at 8 weeks old. We have partners in Europe and Czech. And we are picking dogs from Europe for a reason. And it's because they've been bred for decades and just forever in time to perform a certain level of task, which requires them to have good nerves, good genetics, health. You can't do protection work if the dog's got bad elbows or hips. Anywhere in the United States, if Sean has a German Shepherd, I have a German Shepherd, we can breed him. There's no breed standards. In Europe, you have to have a working title to breed your dog, and that's why we specifically pick those dogs. But why don't you talk a little bit, Sean, about when it starts at 8 weeks old?
Right. So yeah, our dogs that enter the program that we have, trying to select that very specific dog, because again, what we're looking for is that Hall of Famer of a dog. We're not looking for just a good dog, a D1 athlete. There's a lot of great dogs, but not all of them make it into our program, especially as it continues, because we're constantly filtering the dogs that enter our program. So as a baby, we start with knowing the genetics of their parents, but as the dog is maturing, not every dog that has great parents turns into be also a great dog for our clients, because what we determine is great doesn't mean the dog is good or bad. There might be another dog that doesn't fit our criteria. It's a great dog for a pet home, great dog for the military or police, but we're looking for something very specific that we know our clients like. And so that process starts, like Ron mentioned, when they're just born, and then they get raised a certain way, and that we're looking to pull dogs out that show unique ability and skill sets. And that continues at different stages and checkpoints. And again, we have multiple people that we procure dogs from. But as they go through this process, once they get about 6 months to a year, those dogs enter the final phase of that program, where we get into the deeper obedience and the more tangible training that what is our clients see at the very end product. And they start with us, and that training goes for about a year and a half to 2 years, where we're working with them to tailor them from what we would call a basic skill set. And then once we kind of know what home they'll be going for, or what the best temperament and training matches with that dog, then we dial it in for another 6 months or so. And now that dog is really designed to go to somebody special.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention too that we hand select our dogs. We travel to Europe and we will look at 100 dogs before we pick 5. And again, to Sean's earlier point, it's not that the other 95 dogs aren't going to be a great fit for someone else. They're going to end up in a good position. It's not like they're going to be euthanized or anything like that. But for our program, we want a dog that's very social, has great environmental skills. They can be taken anywhere with them, and they can do the bite work. We don't necessarily need a dog that was, higher drive, higher charging that maybe the military needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So say, Ron, we take a dog that's from a young dog, it goes into our program, it makes all the cuts, gets to us at the final stage of that training where we put all the finishing touches and advance it. The next step is when we start working with the clients. And let's just talk a little bit about, I think, what separates what we do and our background and our skill sets is not only delivering super highly trained, advanced obedience and protection trained dogs, but we also have the skill to help train the client. Because I know from my history with having a pet dog business, I could give someone my world-class obedience dog, but that doesn't mean they're going to have success with it. They usually will call me 30 minutes later going, Sean, pick up this crazy dog. He's too much drive for me, or he's eating a hole in my wall. But it takes them knowing how to manage that dog. And so we spend not the same amount of time as we do training the dog, but pretty darn close working with the clients, because that goes on for the rest of the life of that ownership with that client and that dog.
Yeah, and I think it starts with the selection of the dog because, people want what they want, but at the end of the day, it's our job to make sure that they get what they need. So they may see one of our dogs and they absolutely love the dog's looks. But if it's not going to be compatible with their situation, we're not going to put them or our dog in a bad situation. And as part of the purchasing process, we're going to have a very extensive conversation on what their needs are, because our dogs are all trained to do certain things as far as being social, being able to go through the mall, up escalators, all that type of stuff. But we've had clients where they own a car wash and they want the dog to face, they don't feel comfortable getting the money out because their back is towards, the public, and they want the dog to face the other way to protect them. So we'll understand what their needs are and train specifically for that. And that can take another 3 months, but that, I think, is what makes us unique. And the other thing I think really is unique about us is, again, we're not looking for transactional relationships. We provide white glove service. We're making sure that the customer feels heard. We're going to answer as many questions as they have. There is no bad questions. And we never want a client suffering in silence. We want them to fail fast, reach out. If we're in a different state, let's get it on video. We'll do a FaceTime with you. We'll figure it out. And like Sean likes to say is, we'll build a casino. When you go into a casino, they're designed to win. They have those fancy carpets and bright lights for a reason, because they're designed to win. And that's how we train too. So we'll set up training scenarios with you so that you can win. Your job during a lot of these situations after we place a dog with you is to gather data, pick up the phone, give us a call, and then we're going to help you work through some of those things.
Absolutely. And so we've talked a lot about our dogs and how we kind of take them through the journey of going from being babies to well-trained personal protection dogs. And part of our process of doing that is our facility. When we have dogs that come in here, we take dogs that we have different areas in our 1.5 acre facility. We have one area that's our showroom for when people come to see dogs their first time. We have another indoor training room that's what I call a Hollywood backdrop. We can make it look like a family room, a dining room, a man cave. We can make it look like a wild jungle gym, or totally empty. And then we have 3 outdoor areas that we can make like protection scenarios specific. We can make it a training regiment where they have obstacles, hurdles to challenge the dogs in the bite work phase as well as obedience. And then we also have an acre that's just wide open space. So we can create almost any scenario that the client may throw at us. So our dogs have usually met all those criteria before they're even picked to go to a home and they're really well prepared.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning too. We do have kennels. We have 18 kennels, but we limit the amount of dogs we have at one time to no more than 5 or 6 because we think it's really important. Now, granted, the dogs are going to spend some time in the kennels, but we also think it's important that we get them out into public a lot. And you can't do that if you have 20 dogs, as well as in our homes. So, Sean will take a dog home, I'll take a dog home, a trainer will take a dog home, and we want them to be acclimated as much as possible to the home environment as we can. And that's the room that we talked about is really important for that because we can set that up. The worst thing someone's going to want is to make this investment in this security asset, and then he comes in and pees on their nice furniture.
Yeah,
We're going to work through that before the dog ever goes to your home.
absolutely. So a lot of our training, if we were to break it into categories, we do advanced obedience so that it functions and works in the hardest of atmospheres. And then we do the protection training. But a third category would be what we call socializing. And that's not just with other dogs. That's not just in the home environment. It's out and about. So that way, when you take a dog somewhere, we've already exposed it and taught it how to meet expectations in those environments to really, really well prepare it.
Yeah, and I think that's key. Like we did a training session 2 weeks ago. We're in Gilbert, Arizona, and we went down to Tempe Beach Park. And, our dogs are so socialized and get exposed to so many different things. They're not reactive. And we were there quite early in the morning, and there was a homeless person who was probably intoxicated, fake shooting at everything and making loud noises. And these dogs are such a deterrent. Our dogs weren't aggressive or even alerting on him. But when he got close to us, he knew, he sobered up pretty quickly that, hey, I can't be fake shooting at these guys. Otherwise, there's going to be a challenge. So I think that's just one of the things that our dogs really bring to the table is they're going to stop a lot of threats before they ever even happen without any interaction.
Absolutely. Because like you mentioned, our dogs, they don't get to pull the trigger of when to engage something. That always comes from the handler or the owner. But they can alert to it and let us know that they see something because their detection perimeter is much more highly keen than ours as humans. And we can learn how to read that and then give the dog direction. In this case, we didn't even need to give the dog direction because the presence of the dog told the person that, hey, maybe I should not engage them in that way.
Yeah. And there's so many different variables that you can train. And I'm a huge proponent of this stuff. I love tactical stuff. So my personal dog, we've trained for, truck invasions. We've trained for home invasions. He's had a 38 blank gun shot at him. And we can do that for our clients too, depending on what their needs are. So the really, I think, critical thing about our dogs is the genetics they have. We can take them to whatever kind of different scenarios that you may or may not face, and they're going to be successful. If you've never experienced severe violence in your life, you're going to more than likely fold when it happens. Our dogs aren't going to do that. I mean, I think Sean had mentioned it earlier, but there's a phase that we go through with the training, Sean, from the bite work perspective. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So in that bite development or the protection development of a dog, we talked earlier about we do obedience from beginning to super advanced and why. And then we do socializing for everything and why. But now in the bite work phase of it, we do a lot of training in the protection phase because it's not really just bite work. It's having the dog be able to present a dominant and confident posture to a potential threat. But they can be just from the physical presence, but also guarding and turning on and showing aggression and shutting it off. Because the shutting it off can be a big deterrent for an assailant. When the person knows that, man, that owner has really good control, they don't want to push past that threat. But in the development, when it is time for the dog to engage, we're very comprehensive in teaching that as well as everything else. So we would teach our dogs in the protection phase how to bite a sleeve, how to bite a suit, how to bite a hidden sleeve, because if that picture is not there, the dog may question it. But if we've trained it, now their questioning is less. But also past a hidden sleeve, then doing muzzle training where the dog has a muzzle, there's no equipment, and the dog is fully committed to engaging that person. Now, as trainers and a company that's supplying the dog, we have very high confidence that that dog will engage if need be. And then the last bit is training it for the environment, like you mentioned about the person getting money out of a teller that needs the dog to bite in that environment. They've been trained to do that. So whenever we have a client that's ready to procure a dog of ours, we know we can tailor that training, that great foundation that they have. Now they do it around the stroller, or they do it in the home, or out and about in the workplace, or at their business. So now that dog's protection training is really skilled at the highest level.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to mention too that we're all about our brand. And our brand is to serve clients, at the highest level. And if you're not careful and you don't do your homework, you could end up buying a dog that will be great on the sleeve. And if that trainer, that helper, they drop the sleeve, the dog's going to go after the sleeve and stop pursuing the person. Well, that's not going to help you in a real situation, and that's why we really go through these different phases. There's an appropriate place for the sleeve for sure, but it can't be the end of that conversation.
Absolutely. So having a comprehensive process is necessary for what we're talking about, and what our clients buy from us. What we provide is a very fully, comprehensively, high-level trained protection dog. But what are some of the other things that would be necessary outside of training? And I think unique for our business is that transition phase. How do we get our client to be just as successful as us or one of our trainers, where that trainer can have control and access over that dog, but so can our client at the end of the program?
I think, given your background, Sean, the expertise that you have, like there's no one like us out there, right? There's no other trainer out there, no other founder that's made the world team 4 times. And there's no one else that's got 30 years of experience running very large enterprise businesses.
The synergy of having 2 people that start this company, I think that was unique with us, of your skills merging with mine, but us both being aligned that our customer success matters the most.
Yeah.
And so our ability to make sure that not only can we showcase a dog, a lot of good trainers out there can showcase a dog doing amazing things, but how well can they get their clients to have similar or exact success is, I think, an area where we touch on that our competitors really don't.
Yeah, and I think where I was going earlier is with the skill sets that we have, it's a given our dogs are top notch, and when they go through the 2-year program, they are going to be the best in the industry. But I think the unique skill sets that you have, we recently had a local person that purchased a dog from the very popular vendor. The guy sells dogs to movie stars, to athletes, and they did not set the owner up for success, for sure. They dropped the dog off. The dog went even out on a sleeve, and these folks are great people, and they tolerated this for a year, and they reached out to us for help. And I let them know this isn't something we do typically. It's not part of our business model. But I talked to Sean, and we felt compelled to help them. And they had purchased a pretty hard dog. It's a Czech German Shepherd. I love those type of dogs. A lot of dog for what I thought was for their family. And I got to be honest with you, pleasantly surprised. Sean did an excellent job with that dog for 3 weeks and completely reset it. The dog was very reactive to people, to dogs, peeing in the house, redirecting on the owner. All that stuff got fixed in a matter of 3 weeks, rehabilitating it. So not only do we have like our own dogs that are top notch, but we have the skill sets where the genetics are there to fix other people's problems that they've dumped on someone else unfairly. And in this particular case, Sean, probably talk a little bit about how you went through that and the clients.
Absolutely. And I think if that client would speak to this, they would say what they benefited the most from is our engagement, one, through the process, but more importantly, afterwards. One of our tenets that we say all the time is don't suffer in silence. So all of our clients know you're family. You're in our realm of engagement, and we're going to be there with you throughout that whole process. And so as we train the dog to make sure that it meted expectations, but now they're getting the support that they didn't get initially, and they're having success, sending us videos all the time with showing off how they're having success with their dog at the cafe, out and about, walking, on a hike. And that's what we're really after. If we know as trainers, we can train those things, but if we can't get it to happen for them, it's of very little value. And so creating that highest level of value, not just in the dog and the training, but in the comprehensive ability for that client to access all of that, I think is really important.
Yeah, when you talk about value, I think about these dogs as assets. I mean, they really are. And the dog's going to live anywhere from, 10, 12, 14 years old. And when you make the investment, it may seem like it's a significant investment in the beginning. And let's be honest, I mean, these dogs aren't cheap, but there's also a 2-year development process to get them to this point. And when you actually average out the cost per hour, we're probably breaking even in a lot of
Exactly.
cases, right? But you'd be amazed at who purchases dogs. It's not just the person who owns exotic cars. It's everyday average families because they feel that this investment is worth it for their family. Maybe the husband travels a little, couple times a year or something. Maybe it's not even an executive. It's a manager or whatever the case may be, where their job takes them away from their family. And I like to stress that this is an investment that's going to last for 10, 12 years. And if you do the math for, let's just say you hired a security company, the return on the investment is going to not be all there, but it's going to be close when you get through 10 or 12 years. And that security company is only going to make you aware of the threat. It's not going to defend or protect your family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of value that comes from someone who owns a personal protection dog, especially one of ours that is meeting all the criteria, is that it can work for them in such a wide variety of circumstances. But more importantly, the value a lot of times comes is that consistent support that we give our clients, regardless of what questions they have, regardless of what things they may struggle with, or have what we've seen plenty of times, they've done wrong with good intention. But our job isn't to judge them or blame them for not knowing what to do. Our job is to coach them and make them as successful as possible. And in every circumstances, we as a company are behind supporting that and doing it. And in this case, the last case we were talking about, not only for our clients, we've supported dogs that we didn't train, but somebody really needed that support. And we knew that the dog had the skill set if all the right training and the support was in place.
Yeah, and I think that family's extremely happy and they're doing a great job with the dog from all the videos that we've seen thus far. As part of the process of purchasing our dogs, Sean, we make sure that we're setting our clients up for success. And almost everyone that purchases a dog from us has a dog already.
Absolutely.
So why don't you talk a little bit about how we go about that to make sure that it's a smooth transition?
Sure. One of the things, like we mentioned earlier, we're preparing for every potential variable that could be there, as many as we could think of. And having done this for a long time, we've pretty much conquered all of them. And so it's very common, for instance, that our clients will have dogs at home because the people that we work with like dogs. And so say, for instance, and we've had this happen where their dog wasn't so well socialized that it wasn't good with dogs. Well, as buying one of our dogs, that was part of the process. So we fixed those dogs so that they could show the ability to interact, and we helped create that pack environment between the dogs they purchased from us to the dogs they already had. And those dogs prior didn't have the ability to interact correctly socially with other dogs, but they do now. And now they have a bigger pack, but also their dogs are happier and our dogs integrated just fine with that. So I think, there's some challenges that people commonly have when integrating a new dog, let alone a dog with a lot of physical abilities and vigor to integrate into their house. So what are some common other things that we may have to run across when we're working with integrating someone that bought one of our dogs into their home?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different, right? They could have teenage kids where you're going to have a bunch of kids running in and out. And, protection dog sees a 14-year-old kid, boy, as he would a man. So it's really important. And I think we've mentioned this earlier, that these dogs are not reacting on their own accord. They're going to do what they're told to do. So that would be a really bad situation for someone to purchase a dog that doesn't have that stability. And that's one of the things we pride ourselves in. Our dogs can literally be anywhere, anytime, but it really comes down to really that conversation, that consultation about what is your home situation? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you have kids? Do you have maybe an elder, the parent in the house or something like that? And all these things come into play when we help our clients select a dog.
Yeah, I think that vetting process we see it as important as the selection process of the dog because they both have to marry in order to have the comprehensive success that our clients want, whether they have babies, like you mentioned, or elderly person in the home. All of those things, one, have probably already been uh, pre-established and worked on with the dog before they go to the home. But if not, we will know that process before the dog's ready to go home because they're not ready to go home until we've already vetted that whole process and prepared the dog for that success.
Yeah, and we would rather not place a dog with someone and have them be placed on our waiting list versus putting a dog or them in a situation that's not going to be feasible for the accommodations.
Because it's a really big decision when buying anything of high value, but especially when it's a living being. So we're bringing a living being dog that is autonomous to make its own choices. We just coach those people how to integrate it, how to make it well, and understand that it's a big purchase as far as integrating into your full lifestyle. So we don't have any qualms about putting somebody on our waiting list so that they get the right dog for them and their family and their environment, whatever that may look at, because we know the demographic of people that buy our dogs is huge. Everything from young people to old people or anything in between. And so we want to make sure that the selection for the client is every bit as the selection of the dog when we're getting it.
We should probably talk about some of the different scenarios that folks have purchased dogs from us to help them with. Like, I know we have realtors, we have folks that own exotic cars, we have families. So maybe give a couple examples, and I will as well.
Sure, absolutely. Our dogs go into homes with a wide array of things that clients want us to protect against or want help protecting against. Some of the common ones are our female demographic. One I can speak to is like a client who was a realtor that showed homes and sometimes not in the best part of town or at night and by herself. So her dog was specifically trained to be able to have a door popper on her car. And if she was showing a home at night, she left the front entry door to the home open. And if there was a problem, she would hit a button on her key fob and that dog was running into the house to engage and find out what was needed to be done. But there's those scenarios. Another female demographic situation was a lady who her kids were older, moved out of the house. She was home by herself and she was very active. However, they had a service person come to their home, and that service person a day or two later was in a car, not from the company, but a personal car parked across the street. And so she put two and two together and thought, this is a potential threat, and it made her very concerned. So being able to be safe, feel safe in the house, and when she went hiking, having a dog really fit that need. Because like we mentioned, a dog can't do everything, but it can do a lot of things that other layers of defense can't do. What are some other scenarios that you've run across in our business?
Yeah, so we've had, unfortunately, a couple had a home invasion at New Year's, and the person basically waited in their yard for 2 hours for them to leave, and then broke the slider and ransacked their house, and they were traumatized. They couldn't sleep for days afterwards, and
so were their little Frenchies got traumatized in the process.
Yeah, for sure. And then, long story short there, they had brought in some outside expertise, and they were talking about hiring armed security, putting bulletproof glass in, just doing a whole lot of things to get their, self back. And we happened to run into them at the Barrett-Jackson auction this past year, and we'll be there again this year. Stop by and see us. And we had a conversation with them and let them know that there's other options out there. And when it was all said and done, we ended up placing 2 dogs with them, and they're, I would say, by far one of our favorite clients. We talk with them every week. And just to watch how freed up they are now because they have this another layer of protection that they didn't have. They got their life back. Is just so rewarding.
Absolutely. And ironically, the 2 dogs and all the service that we've provided them going forward after purchasing the dog have probably been, I would argue, were less than the cost of doing some of the extreme protection things that they were going to do prior to getting a dog. And so even though that this process of buying a protection dog is very different from buying just a pet dog, it's apples to steak, not the same comparison, but this process isn't near as expensive as doing some of what are other protection things that aren't always a guarantee. Like you mentioned earlier, you could have a protection company, but they might fall asleep on the job or they alert you, but then they have a very big limitation to that.
Yeah, and depending on the situation, that person can be bribed. I mean,
Absolutely.
people are working so hard, every day, and in this case, the couple we're talking about do very well for themselves, and you become a target because of your success, and you have to watch out for that stuff. While you're not thinking about it, I guarantee you, someone with bad intentions is thinking about it, and I just can't imagine ever being in a situation where I wasn't there and something awful happened to my family and I couldn't be there to protect them. And that's why I got into this over 20 something years ago. And for me, having traveled all over the world at this point, having that confidence when I would go away that they're going to be okay. I don't have to worry about this. I don't think you can put a price on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I've seen in some of the comments and questions that we've gotten online of people having concerns or being unaware of what is it like living with a personal protection dog, or is it something that they have to fear, or is it what we would call a junkyard dog, which is not what we train. But sometimes dogs get aggressive because they're predators, and when they're fearful, aggression will come out. But a protection dog isn't that at all.
Yeah.
I would say a protection dog is a dog who's so confident, so sure of themselves, they can freely and comfortably interact with the world around them. But when trained to engage, the training makes them do it in such a way where they're confident, very secure, and very stable in the head, and they can have access to that dog and control it really well in those highly aroused states.
Yeah, and it's a personal protection dog for a reason, and we strongly encourage you to take the dog everywhere with you. He can't protect you if it's not with you. And they're so obedient that you can take them literally anywhere with you. You can take them on planes, trains, restaurants, you name it. And the dogs should really not be making a scene or noticed at all, but it's there. It's no different than someone who's trained, maybe they trained 20 years to box or they're MMA. They have a very high skill level to defend themselves, but they don't walk around, growling at people or aggressive, but they're very confident, God forbid, they have to defend themselves. And unfortunately, and fortunately, not a lot of people have experienced extreme violence. And when you are put in that situation, most people are going to fail. They're not going to know what to do. And I keep stressing this. I can't imagine being in that situation with my family, especially if I had kids in the house. Some bad actors are doing some horrible things or just scaring the bejesus out of the family and not being able to do anything about it. Our dogs can prevent that from happening right from the beginning, where that's never even, a threat or a thought.
Absolutely. And you know what our clients report back to us is because fortunately, these kinds of threats aren't happening every day. If they happen once in your life, that's more than what you ever want. But when they're living with them, they report back to us that they're the center of their universe. They become their favorite thing to do because it's having family in a different way, in the dog form, that they can interact with, do everything with. Because when dogs are highly trained, they know how to meet expectations and they're highly motivated to do it. Well, then life is very positive engaging them, versus a lot of people, unfortunately, we've seen this, is they're constantly struggling because the dog's not clear of what they want and they're not clear of how to teach it. And so there's constant tension.
Yeah.
Where dogs that are fully trained and highly trained, people really get to enjoy them in a way that they have never seen enjoying their own pet dog even.
Yeah, you see this so much in the pet industry. People will tolerate a dog and be in a complete nuisance for the life of the dog for 12 years. It's causing chaos, running on the couch, chewing up furniture and stuff like that. We don't have that with our dogs. Our dogs are, you're not going to go anywhere where you're not going to become the center of attention, especially with the level of obedience and that control. And I think one more example, we had a gal who we met at Barrett Jackson, young girl in mid-20s, who unfortunately was a victim of domestic violence, and she has a son as well. And I talked to Sean after talking with her, and we have a lot of empathy for these type of situations. And we basically donated a dog to her at cost. and she couldn't afford one of the dogs, but we felt it was extremely important to try and help her given the situation.
And part of our way to give back as
Yeah.
an organization.
Giving back, and that's something we want to do more, at least once a year in the community, is how can we give back into the community? And in this case, we hope that our dogs never end up biting anybody, but we wouldn't mind this one getting a bite as long as they all stayed safe to really teach this person a lesson. But in that case, 3-year-old child, so we had to make sure the dog was the right fit. And we've had several follow-up conversations with this person to make sure that she's okay and she's doing great. And again, just to see her having her whole world opened up again, because she basically shut down. I mean, she shut down her world as a young person and was a prisoner of her own home because of this threat.
And she had a lot on her plate, moving, having a young child, and having the domestic violence issue. But more on top of that is her child was on the spectrum, which can also put you a little bit on an island as far as support. And I think some of the support that we gave her with her dog, and knowing that there's no bad questions, there's nothing that we won't hold your hand through that process for, she felt like there's somebody on her team, and we can help provide that for her. When people are buying a dog, we've talked a lot about how our dogs go through the process, what they're trained for, how we train owners to control and integrate those dogs into their lifestyle. But when they're looking to get a dog and they don't know us from someone else or vice versa, what are some of the key things they need to look for in a company to know they're getting somebody who will support them and can also deliver the quality product that would be of the value of a really well-trained personal protection dog?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that come into this. Number one, you should validate their credentials. Again, I'll say it, I don't think anyone has the skill level that we have between Sean's expertise training dogs, making the world team 4 times, as well as my experience running very large organizations and knowing what it really means to provide service and white glove support. The other thing is, if I always say, if you got to pull out the contract, you got the wrong partners. But we have a contract, because whatever we tell you, we're going to back it up in a contract so that you have some assurance in your investment. You should check the references. You should check their facilities, making sure that you're comfortable. If it's a dirty kennel, it's likely they're not putting the time and effort in that they need to really raise a solid dog that you can depend on for the next 10 or 12 years.
Absolutely. And I think I would add experience. I remember when I first started my pet dog business 25 years ago, there was a lot of things I didn't know then. And I was able to work through it for having the right intent, working for people and helping them, but also learning as I grew. And now, 25 years later, in both of our experiences, there's a lot that we bring to the table. So in our personal team at our company, we only bring certain people in that we know are aligned with that and can help us deliver and be stronger within our own ecosystem. And so if I was somebody looking for a dog, I would really vet a place. Well, do they have the experience behind what they do? Like, have they had those scenarios where they had to work through tough issues with clients, tough issues with dogs, that you're not their first experimenting process?
Yeah, and I think a lot of these companies that are doing it become actually arrogant, and they forget that the clients pay the bill, and you need to not make them feel inadequate or stupid in the process. You need to seek to understand and really make sure that they feel that you have empathy and you're listening versus prescribing or making them feel stupid in the process.
Preaching down to them.
Yeah, preaching down to them.
And I think that's a key one, because you don't have to be a professional dog trainer. You don't have to have 25 years of experience owning and running a business to be able to see if something passes the smell test. But I would encourage that engagement. In our world, a lot of days, everything is so refined with social media and digital formats. But I would highly, highly, highly recommend having a phone conversation, because that phone conversation will help illuminate when people aren't sure, or you get the vibe of who is this company and what are their core tenets, and will they stand behind you? Because having a dog and investing the resources that you would to get one of these dogs. Um, it's an important decision, and you need to be able to trust more than anything else. Is this company going to stand behind and be an advocate for my success versus a transaction that they completed?
Yeah, I think the other thing, we'll close on this, and is do a site visit. I mean, we welcome
100%.
folks here. We love. We're training just about every day, some scenario. We welcome people here. It's a significant investment. You should do a site visit. If they won't let you walk through their kennels or training rooms or things like that, that should be a red flag for you.
Turn and run.
Turn and run. If they're abusive to their dogs during the training process, they're yanking and cranking and things like that, turn and run. There's a lot of red flags out there. We welcome folks to come and do a tour, come spend some time with us, talk to our references.
Speaking to your references, any good company should be able to either allow you to speak to someone or at least be able to demonstrate that someone else that's been through their process loved their experience. And fortunate for us, we're batting 1,000 on that one.
Yeah.
Our clients, because we take it it's very important to us, and we're very intentional about that experience as much as we are the training of the dog. And I think those things don't happen by accident. It happens because that's a core tenet of what this company stands behind.
Yeah, 100%. And this business is a 24/7 business. If it's not
100%.
dogs, it's people. There's no days off. 4th of July, we're working, right?
Probably our busiest days
Yeah.
are most places days off.
Yeah, so there's no days off, whether you're talking with clients or you're rolling up your sleeves and cleaning the kennel if someone's not there to do it, whatever it takes to get it done. But Sean, let's wrap this up. We've had a lot of, I think, good questions asked, and we're answering them to the best of our ability. If we missed something that you folks think is important, please reach out. We're happy to talk. We'll continue to gather sets of questions when we gather enough that warrants a sit down and conversation. We'll have that conversation so that it gets out broader to the folks on the internet. But just really appreciate your time spending with us, and would love to have a conversation with you if you're looking to make one of these animals an asset in your family.